Kia ora, g'day. Paul Brennan, Bring Our Birds Home. It is Wednesday the 15th of September. Time for a video update from the beautiful historic Braemar, the bed and breakfast in the heart of Auckland CBD, so convenient. It's owned and operated by my very good friends John and Mel Sweetman. They support Bring Our Birds Home. It's our current base of operations. I mentioned in the previous video update the strong link between this historic home in Auckland and our aviation history. For many years through the 50s, 60s and I think early 70s, Gene Batten's father lived here. It was his home, and Gene visited Braemar on many occasions. I haven't unearthed any pictures showing her in and around the house, but I can visualize her gliding up and down the big stairways here at Braemar during those visits all those years ago. If you need to visit Auckland for a night or a series of nights, book Braemar. The booking link is below this posting, and they tell me for the next month or so, if you say you found out about Braemar through Bring Our Birds Home, they will donate 20% of the fee to the Bring Our Birds Home campaign. Very generous. Thank you, John and Mel. If you're going to stay in Auckland and you need bed and breakfast accommodation, choose Braemar. Book through the link below. Before I start on the video update, I want to mention the passing of a friend, a very good friend of Bring Our Birds Home, and of course very well-known photographer Bob Leask. We knew Bob was ill. It was still a bit of a shock to hear he had passed away at the end of last week. Thank you so much to all our followers who posted wonderful comments and likes and loves in the hundreds to the post we put up on Saturday advising our followers of Bob's death. I hope his family read some of those wonderful comments. Bob was very generous. Not only was he incredibly well connected online, so every time we posted something and he shared it, the distribution went through the roof, but also generous with his images. Through nearly 6 decades, Bob has captured images of New Zealand aviation history, many of them the actual airplanes, airframes we're trying to recover, and Bob was always up for us using those images for no cost. For promotional activity, for sending to media, for including in emails, and for posting on our social media feeds. So Bob's memory will live on in the images, and I don't think we could have quite got to where we are today in building the campaign without the use of those images. So rest in peace, Bob. Thank you for your contribution. And as I say, we will remember you every time we see one of your images. Bob Leask, a very well-remembered friend of Bring Our Birds Home. On to the video update, and first, the tropical storm Florence that hit North Carolina over last weekend. We were a little concerned that that might have put NAD in the path of danger, sitting at Laurinburg-Maxton Airport, just out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We checked with the owner over the weekend. He told us everything was okay. And we received this image from James McCloskey at Laurinburg-Maxton Airport, North Carolina, within the last day or so, showing NAD now in the sunshine. Came through Florence okay. Timing could be good here. We think the 737 is most likely the first airframe will be successful in recovering. We're not too far away from agreeing a final purchase price for the airframe. We have expressions out to professional dismantlers for accurate quotes to dismantle the airframe of NAD, and we have a pretty accurate shipping quote for shipping the pieces of NAD from North Carolina back to New Zealand. A week or so ago, I met again with the Provincial Growth Fund people, this time as a registered charitable trust. We wanted to understand the criteria and application process. I think we've got a pretty good handle on that. I think we fit the criteria quite well. We tick a lot of their boxes. It's most likely we'll be applying for funds. We could before the end of September for an announcement in November, but I think it's most likely we'll be applying in October for an announcement in December, just so we can get everything lined up and good to go, all the quotes in. And we'll know before the end of this year how we're going to do from the Provincial Growth Fund. I'm quietly confident about that, but we have to make our case like everybody else. I think we've got a good case to make. We should know before the end of the year. We're also looking at the lottery's substantial project fund. I think we fit the criteria for that very tightly. We can apply to that fund through the end of October, early November for an announcement early next year. And we are, of course, enhancing and maintaining the relationships that started with our visit to Queenstown and Wanaka in mid-August with the trusts and organisations down there. It looks like aspects of the Bring Our Birds Home project fit the criteria for funding with those trusts and organisations, so we'll find a way through that as well. And we are following up corporate donors and high net worth individuals, philanthropic types, to get the money in to make a success of our campaign. We only really have one shot at this. As I keep saying, these are the only remaining examples of these original fleets of Teal Air New Zealand NAC. If we miss out on these, that's it. There are no more. We miss out on the chance of a lifetime. And a great stride forward in the last week or so is the announcement from Nick Coleman Television that they're interested in the Bring Our Birds Home project. They make the series A Plane Resurrection, coming up to 3 series now on multiple platforms globally, including Netflix. That's more about warbirds and targeted at a warbirds audience. It's planned that this will be a series outside Plane Resurrection, standing on its own. Yes, telling the stories of finding and recovering the airframes, but also the history of them, how they helped build this country, why they were chosen to operate in New Zealand. The fact that they're the last remaining examples of the original fleets of Teal Air New Zealand and NAC, the number of people who travelled on them, the significant events they were involved in, the DC-10 involved in the Pacific Rescue, NZC, the aircraft that carried the Queen and Royal Family around the Pacific prior to the Commonwealth Games in 1974, NAD that flew the first commercial domestic jet service in our history on the 7th of October 1968, TEB representing the aircraft that brought the Beatles to New Zealand, and of course eventually NBV, the 747. It was that aircraft that really opened up our international tourism industry and the air routes that we have today. Many Kiwis beginning their OE on that particular plane. So all those stories will be covered hopefully in that series that Nick Coleman TV intends to make about Bring Our Birds Home, and we can see that opening doors all over the place as we tell our story. Of course, anyone who helps out is involved in the story and can be covered and included in such a series. So watch that space. There'll be further announcements about that as we go on. I should also mention Steve Wilde's visit to Havana. Steve Wilde is a former colleague of mine from the radio days. We used to work together. Now he's in charge of downtown promotions for Queenstown, New Zealand. He's overseas at the moment. One of his stops will be in Havana, Cuba. And he's a follower and friend of Bring Our Birds Home. He's offered to take images and footage of the DC-10 airframe at Havana Airport, NZS, the former Air New Zealand and only remaining Air New Zealand DC-10 on the planet. I've written an introductory letter and forwarded that through to Mario, the ambassador from Cuba to New Zealand. He's translated that into Spanish and forwarded that off to the appropriate officers and authorities in Cuba to help smooth some access for Steve when he arrives there in a week or so. Hopefully that will all get through, and not only we can get some great images and assess the condition of NZS and of course bring you the images, but also begin the relationships that we need to form to, in the end, recover NZS and eventually return the airframe back to New Zealand. Remember, our Give a Little page is still active. givealittle.co.nz/cause/Bring Our Birds Home. Keep on donating. We need that money to keep the wheels of the organisation turning. Of course, we are now charitable trust status, so you can claim on your tax regarding those donations. The next update hopefully will be to inform you how we've done with the Cuban authorities and getting access for Steve, and maybe some early images coming through from him. And we'll let you know about funding initiatives. We're really into that. That is the big part of our business at the moment. I mentioned a few video updates back that we were looking to try and find a way to get our JT8D engines transported, shipped from Harvey out to New Zealand. I've been talking to a couple of tertiary institutions in Auckland about displaying those engines to promote their engineering faculties. For one reason or another, it's not quite working out. One of the institutions has budgetary constraints at the moment. The other, their engineering faculty is being rebuilt and won't have display space until 2020. We are going to be approaching other institutions that we think are a good fit. So we haven't exhausted that concept. I think it'd be a great idea for an institution attracting STEM subject students to use these beautiful examples. I call these engines titanium art, displayed examples of what can be done in engineering, and to inspire students into choosing those subjects and choosing to enroll with a particular institution. I can see that working quite well. It's just a matter of getting the right configuration. So we're still working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to ship out those JT8D-15 engines, which will eventually hopefully go on NAD to New Zealand. And of course, they'll make their way to the Transport and Toy Museum eventually as well. So I want to thank everybody for supporting our campaign. We're going hard, we're not giving up, and hopefully some big announcements before the end of the year, mainly around funding, and expect some media coverage shortly regarding our TV opportunity, some TV and maybe some press and radio. In the meantime, givealittle.co.nz/cause/bring our birds home. Thank you for supporting us, and remember, if you want to stay in Auckland, Braemar Bed and Breakfast, you can book via the link at the bottom of this post. It's a lovely place to stay, and for the next month or so, if you say that you found out about Braemar through Bring Our Birds Home, 20% of the fee will be donated to our campaign. We'll see you again soon.